Good morning, everybody. My name is Katie Geisler, and I'm a university recruiter with Gartner, joining you today to talk about sales strategy and how Gartner's sales organization is structured. To give you an introduction to myself, I'm an associate university recruiter with Gartner. So what that means is I spend most of my time working with undergraduate candidates like yourself to improve their sales skills, develop professionally, and ultimately come join the Gartner sales team. I myself started with Gartner right out of college with our sales team in Fort Myers, Florida, and ultimately moved over to the talent acquisition team in September of this year, which brought me back to my home state of Michigan, and I now cover universities throughout the Midwest. So ultimately, it's really important for you guys to understand what Gartner is prior to talking about how our sales organization is run. And that's because Gartner is a pretty unique blend of a product and service that our sales model and ultimately our sales organization might look a little bit different than ones you've encountered before. So the dictionary definition of Gartner is that we equip leaders with indispensable insights, advice, and tools to achieve their mission-critical priorities. The short answer is that our goal is to help Gartner clients grow through the research and advice we provide. The statistics here at the bottom of the screen are some of the reasons why Gartner is so trusted by our clients across the world. The three main business segments here at Gartner Recruiter talk about are consulting, conferences, and research. For the sake of this presentation, we're specifically talking about the research arm of the business. As you can see, it's the biggest, and it's also where a lot of our new associates will work, is within that business. In terms of what we sell and how we sell it, the best way to equate it is to a gym membership. So it's an annual, it's a license-based model, so it's per person. That means you can't use one gym membership for your whole family unless you have some sort of family plan. So the same thing is true for Gartner. It is a per-person membership. The whole team cannot use it unless they have purchased a product specifically that gives access to those team members. Additionally, it's a renewal-based service, meaning that a lot of Gartner's sales process is actually focused on that relationship management, the account management, and continuing to provide value year over year over year. One thing I do want to make a distinction with here is that Gartner research and advisory is much different from consulting. The two are often easily confused because Gartner is a consultative sale, and that's something that you'll hear over and over. What that means is that as a research and advisory sales associate, you'll be focusing on helping clients overcome their challenges through our research and advisory services. Consulting itself as a practice is only about 10% of Gartner's business, and that is a much more project-based service. So in terms of who we help, Gartner started in 1979 as specifically an IT and technology research firm. That was back when companies didn't quite know how to leverage technology in order to actually make their businesses money. And so at that point, Gartner was founded to help them make those smart business decisions regarding technology. Fast forward to 2020, we've made several acquisitions and greatly expanded our business so that we now cover virtually all C-level functions, meaning that any of the departments you see on the screen, those individuals who are at the very top of the company, right, the chief HR officer, the chief sales officer, the general counsel who is in charge of legal, any of those individuals can benefit from different research and advice that Gartner professionals provide. So to me, this is the most important slide. This is focused on how we do it, right? How do we actually help our clients grow? The three main aspects of any Gartner product are research, discussions with experts, and tools and templates, or the practical solutions on the right. So to best explain this, I like to go through an analogy. So let's say you're a college student, which many of you are. I think most of you on this call will be. You have probably written multiple research papers throughout your college career, and you've probably had to use scholarly peer-reviewed sources. In other words, you're not using Wikipedia to write your research papers. So on the left, Trusted Insights functions very much the same way as a campus database, right? As a student, you can log in and access research from your dorm room, from your apartment, and know that it's going to be peer-reviewed and trustworthy. Business leaders are making decisions based on research too. They might not have a campus database, but they'll have access to research, whether it's Google, whether they're calling their friends, They're needing to get this information somewhere. And so Gartner steps in there as a trusted resource for insights and documents to help those clients make decisions. Now, going back to the campus analogy, let's say you've done a lot of research and you're still not quite sure what to do next, what steps to take in order to make that a really great research paper. So one thing you could do as a student is go to a tutor, or perhaps go to your professor's office hours and have a conversation with an expert in that subject matter, someone who will be able to help you write that paper, help you overcome any challenges you're facing. That is what Gartner experts do for our clients. We have experts in all of the subject matter for the units I mentioned earlier: marketing, sales, finance, legal, IT, technology. Our experts really help clients understand how to overcome challenges that they face in their day-to-day role. Finally, for practical solutions, I couldn't come up with a perfect analogy here, but the best one I like to use is thinking about an assignment rubric. Your professor is likely not going to assign a paper without giving you some sort of success criteria. Whether that's a rubric or just a section on the syllabus, you're going to have guidance for what that paper should look like. So for Gartner clients, that takes the form of practical tools and templates that our clients can use for common business initiatives. An example of that might be a product launch, right? Product launching is pretty hard, involves a lot of people, a lot of deadlines, and a lot of different activities. Gartner has a toolkit that helps clients understand every single thing that needs to happen in a product launch, every single timeline, and who from the company should be working on those different aspects. So you can probably guess from just my presentation thus far that Gartner is not easy. Because it's a complex and kind of atypical product/service combo, our sales roles therefore take a lot of different forms and really work together for the different types of clients. So the main 3 sales roles that you'll encounter at Gartner are in the blue circles here: global technology sales, global business sales, and global conference sales. Within all 3 of these business units, we offer full-time roles and internships for college students like yourselves. And all 3 of these are going to function very similar in terms of day-to-day activities, goals, metrics, the money you could make, etc. Really, the differences are who you're selling to and a little bit what you're selling. Within those 3 business units, we also segment by inside and outside sales. So in the orange on the left, mid-size enterprise is our inside sales team. All of our new associates will start in an inside sales role for one of several reasons. These, by the way, are located either in our Dallas, Texas, or Fort Myers, Florida offices. One of the main reasons is that our training teams are located in those 2 offices. So having access to trainers whose sole job is the of our new associates really up for success. In addition, having that really strong peer group of new hires that are joining with you, having the ability to build that strong personal and professional network, practice your role plays with fellow new hires, go to happy hour, join a workout class. Having those strong connections, especially for recent college grads, is a really, really smooth transition into the professional world. Promotions from that inside sales perspective, you can start as an individual contributor, move up to a sales manager, ultimately a vice president. The other side of our sales team is our large enterprise clients. So our clients who are bigger in size, that is an outside sales team, meaning that the salesperson works face-to-face with clients, and they usually only have one client, but a pretty high volume, high net revenue client, whereas our mid-size sales team will probably have 5 to 10 clients of a smaller scale. So our large enterprise team requires more experience, more knowledge of Gartner, but it's a different promotion track that our account managers on the mid-size team can take. So you'll see that pink arrow pointing to account executive on the large team. Moving from inside to outside sales is a really common promotion track that we see. And then there's additional growth opportunities within that outside sales team as well. The other thing to note is that our outside sales team is stationed all across the country. So let's say you start with Gartner in Dallas, work for 2 to 3 years and decide you want to move to the greater San Francisco area. Gartner has a large enterprise team that's based in San Francisco that you could go join and live there. Same thing with Chicago, Washington, D.C., or you can work remote. I have friends that work in the Denver area, Chattanooga, Tennessee, working remote and having these large enterprise clients. All right, so now I want to break down the different job titles that you'll probably see within Gartner. And at the end, I'm going to show you a organizational chart, so you'll see how all of these work together. So within account management, these roles are available in both global technology and global business sales. Now I want to go back here to contextualize this a little bit. So within global technology sales, you're working with either the head of IT at a company or the CEO of a technology company. So within global technology sales, you have two types of clients and two types of clients only. You have a CEO of a firm who makes and sells technology, such as an Apple or a Google, Microsoft, or you have what's called an end user, who is the CIO, the head of IT at any other company. Global business sales, your clients will be one of any of these other types of roles. So you could work in global business sales specifically with legal teams. You could work in global business sales specifically with finance teams. So whatever business unit you work in with Gartner, you will be focusing on one of these types of C-level executives. So that said, global business sales, global technology sales is virtually the same goal. Your goal is still to provide that research and insights to a C-level executive. Within account management, you're focused on retention and growth of current clients. And like I said, within the inside sales role, you'll have about 5 to 10 clients with varying contract value with Gartner. So your quota will be based on a blend of both retaining those clients as well as bringing on a small number of new clients. Again, your goal is really to deliver value to achieve goals long-term and set the strategic direction for the company year over year over year. Another thing to note is you get paid on the renewals as well. So your commission comes from renewing those contracts. So business development is focused specifically on bringing on new clients. So in contrast to account management, where you're really focused on delivering that relationship year over year, you have opportunities to upsell. With business development, you're focused specifically on net new clients, bringing those clients on, and then you'll pass them over to either a client services manager or an manager to manage the relationship. So your goal is really more heavy on the prospecting, heavy on the cold calling, getting a lot of meetings, sign a lot of signed contracts, and then moving on. So when we're selling that product with a business development manager, they're really focused on time-sensitive issues, right? What problem is this person facing right now that Gartner can help them with? Once that contract is signed based on that pressing problem, that quick deadline, then it's the account manager's job to take over the conversation and to continue providing value. Finally, within conference sales, these sales managers work within all types of clients. They are assigned to Gartner-specific events. Gartner every year hosts 200 plus conferences across the world, and a big part of the money that comes from those conferences is through our conference sales account managers driving attendance through ticket sales. So similarly to business development, this is a much quicker sales cycle, even quicker than business development. They're working with C-level clients of both organizations who spend money with Gartner already and those who do not. Their goal, like I said, is to really drive attendance to conferences to get people interested in attending those conferences. Often what they're selling on is client needs that are tied to that event, right? So we have a conference every year that's called Reimagine HR. That is a conference that a conference sales account manager will be calling on chief HR officers and saying, hey, look, I know you're probably struggling with X issue. Guess what? We have a keynote speaker on that this year. We can help you solve that problem through this 3-day conference. So it's an additional way for Gartner clients and non-clients to solve problems. Ultimately, the conferences sometimes act as a bridge for non-clients to see the immediate value of Gartner and want to sign contracts with us. And so for that reason, the conference sales role and the account manager role are very, very collaborative in bringing that value. Of all of the sales roles with Gartner, this one is the quickest close, usually a 1 to 2 call close rate. And it's a little bit more transactional, meaning there's no renewal, but it can be a year-over-year sale. Right now, how does all of this work together? So I've broken down just a sample organization chart. This is pretty simplified, by the way, and this is for global technology sales account management. So you'll see here, Gene Hall at the very top is our CEO. Then we move down to an executive VP. In this case, it's Joe Beck. On the other side of Joe Beck, there is the same, an executive vice president for global business sales. Underneath Joe, you have a group vice president for both midsize and large enterprise. So Nate over here is in charge of the outside sales team, and he has a whole team over here. Greg is in charge of the midsize team, the inside sales team. Beneath Greg, we have, like I mentioned, our vendors and our end users. So Brad has a team that looks identical to Mark's team. Underneath your managing VP, Mark, you'll have 4 to 5 vice presidents. In our case, Matt, and then Matt will have about 7 to 8 sales managers. So Jasmine, each sales manager will have 6 to 8 account executives. So in this case, TJ. So TJ is the individual contributor. This is where most of our new hires will start. And then this is the support network you'll have. Seeing this on screen, this is why we start all of our new associates in inside sales. Because you have access to all of these leaders on a daily basis. For example, when I was in sales, I saw Greg making coffee every single day. His office was about 6 feet from my desk, and I could walk in and ask him questions. Same thing with Matt. I had monthly meetings with my VP and my manager, weekly meetings with my manager, as well as, of course, daily problem solving with him, as well as my team. So being able to have access to all of these people who have been doing the role for a long time, that's an invaluable resource when you're early on in your career. All right, so in terms of Gartner opportunities, now that you know what the different opportunities are, here's what I look for in candidates, right? So this shouldn't be much of a surprise. I think this is pretty consistent across sales roles. For me, the most important 2 things are actually at the top and the bottom. So executive presence really centers on communication skills, the confidence that I would have to put you on the phone with a C-level executive. Coachability at the bottom is something that's really important because of our rigorous training process. We want individuals who are going to be adaptable and be able to learn quickly and be able to implement Gartner's process into the way that they sell. I have both internship and full-time opportunities that I hire for year over year. Our internship is really focused on hands-on learning. This is not a go and get coffee internship. This is a learn by doing, learn by observing. And you also get the same training that our full-time associates get. And then finally, I am currently still speaking with students about our global business sales role in Dallas. So this would be a full-time opportunity for any college seniors graduating May, this summer, or even in December. Focused on, of course, our development curriculum. You'll go through a pretty rigorous training program that's focused on learning through doing, role-playing, of course, and having the opportunity to shadow some of the best in order to really master those skills. All right, so at this point, I'll kick it back over to you, David, for any questions.
Yeah. Absolutely. Katie, thank you so much, because one of the things that the class we've discussed so far, we talked about things like what is my route to market or go-to-market strategy. And essentially, they had different things like an organization can go with its own sales team, or it can go with channel partners and stuff like that. So for the students in the class, what you should be taking away from this class is that Gartner's approach is go direct. So essentially what they're doing is that they have their own sales team to go out and reach out to their customers. Once you have made that choice of going direct, now the question is, how do I staff my sales organization, right? And what you saw was very, very interesting, and that's what you need to understand and appreciate this presentation from Gartner, is that you have three business units within Gartner. So Gartner is not one entity. And that's what's going to happen in every organization that you're going to work. Every entity that you have has a history and a legacy. So, for example, from what Katie said, she said Gartner started in 1979, and for the longest time, Gartner was known for its technological side, right? So, essentially, what people know Gartner for. It's only recently, and that's very, very interesting, and that's something that if Katie had been in the class with us, we would have had much more of an interesting discussion as well. Is that Gartner's move is when you start advising a lot of these CIOs. What has happened in the last 10 to 12 years is organizations are rapidly rethinking how technology is shaping their whole business models. So essentially, it just makes a logical sense for a company like Gartner to say, wait a minute, we have been helping CIOs, chief information officers, deal with all these technological issues. But wait a minute, these technological issues now are becoming important even for the CEO, the CFO, the COO, CEO being Chief Executive Officer. You have the CFO being the Chief Financial Officer, the COO being the Chief Operating Officer, and name whatever it is, right? And essentially, IT is going to have an impact on each of the different functions within an organization. So it sort of made sense that you began with insights into the technological space, but as technology's role expanded within companies, because what happens is that as a result of that, it has an impact on each of the different functions within an organization. So it made sense that they went out and acquired a company. For some of you in my sales strategy class, you might have had a class with Professor Avila on advanced professional selling, where you might have had a chance to look at the Challenger sale. So the Challenger sale was written by some executives, which are now part of Gartner, but was part of something called the Corporate Executive Board, which is now the significant part of Gartner's business solutions. So you have technological solutions where Gartner came from, where again, you have a long history. So which means that if I'm in sales, my sales process might, yes, you have to still convince customers, but it's going to be slightly different from GBS, which is much more a new entity, and your sales approach is going to be quite different as against when you're dealing with my GTS. Don't forget that GTS has had around 30, 35, or 40 years to perfect what its value proposition is and what the value messaging is. GBS is something that is still, I'm assuming that yes, they have a very clear message, but that message keeps changing because it's not just technology based, it's business based.
Absolutely, and that's why our training program too is so in depth, because of that newer model, right? We don't have that 40 years of recognition like we do in the IT space.
Indeed, that's pretty much why when you decide, you need to understand is when you are making that decision to go join them, you need to understand the nuances of this to understand why there are differences in how every business unit works. Mm-hmm. And you should be asking these questions. So this session, you should see it from the viewpoint of understanding how different legacies within an organization is going to shape its sales functions and roles. But if you're going to be applying for jobs there, you might also want to understand how the sales process drives the sales organization and consequently how they're going to onboard new employees.
Absolutely.
And building on the last part, if you take a look at conferences, and that's interesting because in the past you would imagine that you would only have conferences for technological space, but now suddenly you're becoming experts in finance, you're becoming experts in marketing. So you can actually have a revenue source coming from organizing conferences. But then, of course, the idea is that your conference is going to make money only if you have people filling in the halls, the conference rooms. So essentially, from that viewpoint, then you need a sales team. The interesting thing is you're not going and talking to everybody individually. You're talking to organizations to look at, do they want to send in 3, 4, multiple levels of individuals? Mm-hmm. But again, that's a different kind of argument. So what you need to understand is each business has its own set of sales processes, has a different way of approaching its customers, and that then drives your sales roles and organization. So one thing you really need to take care of is, I like the slide that Katie had, which was very interesting between inside sales and outside sales, where she said the account manager in an inside sales function, the equivalent would be somebody like an account executive in outside sales. So you can easily imagine that this might be for one of the business units, that in the other business units, it could be also slightly different as well. So essentially, that's what you need to understand is that depending upon your go-to-market strategy, your sales force is going to be structured, and that is again going to drive what you're going to be expecting from people on the field. So that is how and what is the key takeaway that you should understand. The first part of Katie's call is more about the offering and the history and the legacy, and that then drives the way you sell, the way you organize, and that organization then drives the way you set up your sales team. So essentially, that's what I think you need to take away from this presentation from Katie, and I really wanted to thank you, Katie, for this. But one question I actually have is that even though I do know that within Gartner, GBS and GCS is still relatively newer when compared to your traditional GTS, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can the students transition from one to the other organizations internally? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So within the sales organization as a whole, so between GCS, GTS, and GBS, we do internal transfers all the time, both lateral and upward promotions, as well as business units as a whole, right? So I mentioned I started in GTS sales and moved over to recruiting. So that's also a big possibility. But there are, like Dava said, those nuances between each of the sales units. Ultimately, compensation is very comparable. The day-to-day is pretty comparable. But let's say you really want to do those quick, fast sales. Maybe conference sales is the place for you, and you want to, after spending a year in GTS, you want to transition over, or vice versa.
But that's pretty much what I wanted to say. And I think this is a very nice way, a nice segue into one of the topics that I could talk about it in theory, but actually having it discussed with this session is actually wonderful. So I just wanted to thank you, Katie. And again, this presentation will be made available along with the slide deck that Katie had and information about how to contact Katie. So I know that Gartner is very well planned and organized so that your internships pretty much are probably full for now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm assuming that you're still recruiting for full-time roles for students graduating, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I'll start recruiting again over the summer or early fall semester for next year's internships, next year's full-time. And no matter where you are in your college journey, I'm always happy to hop on the phone and talk about professional development.
Absolutely. And for our students, indeed, I've had at least two of my students, two sisters actually, who actually might be working in Dallas for GBS. So some Ball State students who are actually there as well. So thank you so much, Katie, for sharing your insights. This is, again, wonderful. It would have been ideal for us to have you in the class. But, hey, at least we get a little bit to understand how you are structured based on your history, based on the customers you serve, and how you want to make sure that you have the best possible salespeople getting the business done for you.
Absolutely. And one other thing I wanted to point out, if you don't mind, is thinking about sales organizations from a recruiting perspective. Is certainly now you know how Gartner's is organized, what our promotion track looks like, what our entry-level roles look like. That's something you're going to want to ask in your interview and your discovery process with companies. You're going to want to know, am I starting as an SDR, and am I going to be cold calling, and what is the promotion track, right? How long am I going to be an SDR before I'm a closer, or am I going to start as a closer? Am I going to have 1 week of training or 6 months of training, right? Figuring out what those different levels look like, both short and long term, is going to be really, really important. The titles at many companies mean different things. So just because your title is business development, you might be a BDR or you might be a closing business development manager like Gartner. So asking those questions is really important. And I think the fact that you had exposure to the way one company does it, now you can go ahead and ask these questions to any company you might be interviewing with.
Indeed, absolutely. So again, pearls of wisdom from Katie. So essentially, again, Katie, thank you so much. Stay safe. And for us, stay safe as well, absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Bye.